I would like to put my attention to our guest, Rodrigo Meirelles. Welcome, Rodrigo, and we are all really looking forward to hear your story and learn from your experience.
No, thank you very much for the invitation. Don't put me on the spot here. I really think it should be a great conversation. I have 3 months living here. I'm amazed by what I'm seeing. I think that's an amazing initiative to develop the local hub.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we are looking forward to to grow this community. So you're now Vice President, New Business Ventures, Strategic Partnerships and Innovation in WEX Inc. Sounds very exciting. So tell us a bit about your current.
Yes, the job title is really exciting, but the job itself is in fact even better. I would say that, at WEX, in the different businesses that the WEX has, it's very known by its fleet business, but has a lot of business in travel payments in the B2B sector and also WEX Health. So the group is building this organization, this machine, now to see, innovation all over the place is a strong force. So how can we try to build that innovation process and machine to get the best of local untapped resources, local companies, and global assets as well? Well, as WEX is a global public company. So my role, my mission is really to try to come up with these crazy ideas that can be really disruptive and have my company grow.
Wow, that sounds great. So, and WEX just passed $1 billion in annual revenue.
Interesting number, yes.
Yeah. So it seems like they know what they're doing.
Yes, they're already aiming the next milestone. I would say that yes, that was pretty amazing. And again, what we're trying to do, and I think with events like that, it's really engage with again local communities, academic institutions, different kinds of sectors to really develop new businesses in new sectors. We have IoT, blockchain, not just in fintech, but if you look at health technologies, wearables, we're really revisiting and touching everything.
Great. So we would like to learn more about yourself as an entrepreneur. So how about we start with your entrepreneurial beginnings? Where have you started as an entrepreneur?
So as you guys could notice, I have an accent. So I am Brazilian. I was born in Brazil, and so my career started to develop as a software developer. In the early days, you developed in Pascal. I met some people here that develop in Python. They should be looking at me like a dinosaur. But the bottom line is that you learn in schools and with friends. So I started creating as a hobby. There was no meaning more than pure mathematics. But very early, I met some friends in events like that, but much less organized. And we were playing with modems. So through that journey, I learned a lot about modems, still hacking, developing, hacking in a good sense with the modems. And then we started hearing about this cool thing called bulletin board systems that very easily became internet. If you're old enough, you lived through that. Bulletin board system was really local networks that you share messages and content with everyone. That was amazing. You really could share a lot of stuff, right? Now, and then this thing of internet became a business, so I have the pleasure to participate in that venture in 2 businesses. Participate through the founding process, development, capitalization, system administration. In the old days, we didn't call these things startups, right? It was just about, we were just building our own business that became an interesting ISP and got sold to international groups in the case of Telefonica. Mm-hmm. And through that, I'd say that I had the pleasure and opportunity to work in different countries, different cultures. What gave me the experience to understand that the world is not through one lens. You always have to consider, if you guys are founders today, one way to see the business might not apply in a different geography. That's why sometimes partnerships make sense, or you're going through a different product. Sometimes you paint a product yellow, your blue product might sell very well here, but not very well here. And through that, I enjoy my telecom experience and now in payments.
Great. So that was a telephonic part. So and then after that, you founded Med Center Solutions.
Yes, Med Center was a very interesting experience to have my initial experience with the health sector. It was, if you could say, not as a WebMD, but similar systems trying to deal with medical health content and getting published. The networks, and again, we're talking about Latin America initially, where the transmission was very poor for internet connections. The data was incredibly high. So emerging market point of view. Today we describe hybrid markets. You have a huge bank population, iPhones, but in the same markets you have these low-end devices. So the business models have to be completely mixed. Otherwise you will sell just a very small share of the population. But I would say that that was also a very interesting hit because the company could really accomplish its goals. It was the first bookstore in the whole Latin America that could sell medical books and started selling different services and then took their own route.
Great. So from the startups then, you moved to Nokia in Mexico.
Yes, so I joined initially in Rio de Janeiro, but I was single at the time and I had the opportunity to be assigned to international missions. And I mean, to me, it was all about getting miles, right? Everything was fun that day. So I say, yeah, I go anywhere you ship me. So then I started having international experience. I could grow in the company, interesting participations in, today we call smartphone. It's a completely different meaning than 10 years ago. A colored phone with a color screen were really a smartphone. Today, I mean, you would say that you put that in those low brand devices. But that was a very interesting experience to be participating in launches like the first phone that had Bluetooth, a camera, wow. Today, I mean, with $15 you can get the device. But in those days it was a $2,000 expensive device. So that was a very interesting experience also to learn the consumer side and the telecom business. And again, speaking to founders, developers, these are still today amazing ecosystems that evolve very fast. One way to see that, and again, might not be jumping, but about disruption. When I joined the Nokia group, you could sell a switch of calls for illustrative numbers for like $1 million, 10,000 calls. 4 years later, you have a $10,000 switch for 1 million calls. So that spike, that revolution that happened in telecommunications that give us the affordable plans that we have today, that gives space for developers to develop apps, monetize, were really a chaotic environment. And I was in Nokia. I mean, now we all know the story. Nokia is in its next chapter, but suffered a lot. It was Nokia had, I mean, close to 95% of market share globally in mobile phones. So it gave us a lesson, like Xerox, like any other company, you have to be aware that your business model any time in history can be disrupted.
So Nokia for you was a switch from a startup to a global corporation.
That was, yes.
Yeah, so how was that transition for yourself?
I mean, it was first to have the shock of you cannot do everything you think is right? So a large corporation, you are inside the huge machine. The Nokia culture, the European culture was very open to innovation. But again, you are not driving your own business opportunity. So you have the temptation to do stuff, but you just can't. You are aiming corporate goals. It was a very good experience. I would say that complemented a lot what I would say that is my background, but it's a completely different thing. If you have the spirit to really pursue your dreams and make sure that you can create your own product, your own service, your own experience, you're really a founder, and you're gonna be there the long run, because also I think your energy will be through that process and we generate much more value. In corporations, you can also generate a lot of good power, but you are under some common understanding that you have a role in the bigger machine.
Bigger machine, yeah. So actually, to Vex, you're coming from Visa.
Yes.
So first there you were leading digital business and then innovation and strategic partnerships. So what importance has that period for you?
Oh, that was also a very interesting journey because moving from mobile telecommunications, it was 2010, and the whole payment space was also getting very radical on mobile. Everything was mobile, and in the payment financial sector, it was a new thing. 2010, we were all using already mobile phones, but it was a new thing. And still today, I think that the fintech sometimes is more a buzz than real action, right? You see a lot of fintech companies really creating value, but there's still a lot of I would say the misperception on the way fintech's been done. So it was an amazing experience because you don't have a university of payments. So the experience I have in payments today really comes from what I learned in Visa, and it was interesting because the concept was to launch and renew the digital theme for a company like Visa, a huge payment network. And through that journey, in 6 years, I participated in the Apple, in the foundation of what is Apple Pay, that is the tokenization service. So the accounts that you have in your cards, when you have in the digital space, they are tokenized, they're encrypted, because internet's not secure. These environments are not secure as it is the process to give the card in your hands. So that whole learning was an amazing experience to participate in. The fact that when I joined, I could have my card in my hand and I could load in a certain app, but today you can really load in these devices and you don't even think how that is done. So that's one of the things that in other industries that I think everybody should be trying to look for, like IoT. You have a lot of opportunities also to create that exponential growth in these kinds of technologies.
Great. So when we are at the Visa, so I heard, not from you, but from other folks here, who that during Visa time, you told the BS to a famous founder commenting on his business model.
Well, let's say not as a Visa executive. I would say that's something that I do very often, and I think is the big value that I received in my life is when someone called your BS or if you're really trying to create a different perception of reality, not a reality distortion, but really making sure that you're not right, the best thing you can have is someone to call that out and say that you're wrong. I'd say that because think about it, it can be in a 1-year journey of something that doesn't make any sense, or in day one, someone can say, you should go back to the board and do those numbers, or that product no one's gonna be willing to buy. And on number 2, you could be already really forecasting sales or getting perception. So yeah, every time I hear something, so that's my personality, I tend to say, sorry, that's not how the world works. You might be right because you might be pursuing a completely different perspective, but based on everything that at least I know I lived, I give you the straight answer, and I do that. I do that with every founder that I meet. I'm a personal investor, so every time I hear pitches, I have no way than to say, it's BS. You need to make sure that that's not right. Your product will not fly.
Great.
And it's great. The feedback that I receive is that, sometimes if for software developers, they come with amazing architectures, but you know that it's, single point of failures, or they're built in a way that will not scale. You need to make sure people address the problem immediately. Yeah,
so can you tell us who was that and what was that particular?
That particular example was from a mobile POS company. So they were envisioning a way where they would convince some banks to issue non-square cards, but triangle cards. And they found a company that has intellectual property on reading cards in a triangle format technology. So imagine, the play was, let's change the whole world to serve my IP. That was an easy one. That's BS. You're never gonna do that, right? So the guy was frustrated. He tried to go with other partners. He even tried to say, I don't want you to, it was not a visa play, it was personal, want to do some business together. Then I said, I mean, fine. But then he came back, and now he has a very interesting network because he built his business on services instead of changing how billions of cars are manufactured in the whole world. Imagine a triangle car.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so your journey is quite a long, quite fascinating. You know, many different, so many lessons there. So, what is the biggest lesson that have impacted the way you work or think?
So one thing that I think is the main driver. First, you need to know where you fit. So there's no bad of not being a leader. I mean, it's really not just words. Sometimes you're comfortable when you're a soccer coach, right? Sometimes you're comfortable being a player in another sport. I mean, and every day, for example, where I am today, we have different initiatives. Connected car, we're exploring a lot of different things. Some things I don't know, I don't lead. So through all my life, what I learned is that team matters. So the right team, I'd say that if you're a company, if you're in a journey, find the right team to be close. Because I mean, we still not living forever. So the time that you have in a certain mission, certain project, make sure you find the best partners. They might not be the brightest today, but might be the ones that will hand information you need tomorrow. And I mean, if we had this meeting 2 years ago, the conversation would be maybe about different technologies, different experiences. So the value is how can we get from A to B, not knowing what is the world today. So specialists, it is great. But more important is how can you be a specialist or become self-learning through the self-learning process better every day. So I read, but some people just do some other activities. So I'd say the first one is team. And I had the pleasure to start working with friends, then working with strong professionals in the large corporations. And sometimes you find the mix where you generate more value. Some people prefer a fixed scope. Some others, I really would like to have a broader scope. Maybe you're a founder where you really want to tackle health. It's really broad. You can create instruments, you can create services, you can build a hospital, you can provide service. But bottom line is that, I mean, the people matters. The other, I think, it's really focus. For many, I mean, there were many times that I was really no focus, and I have people really to get me to that gravitational force to say, that's where we should go. I mean, let's keep the plan. Let's move forward. That's what we're trying to achieve. And with the with the internet service provider was one of the things, because I was very young, but one of the things that we put our minds to do, and today it's a nonsense technology, but Oracle didn't have Linux databases. The internet service provider didn't have money to invest heavy on databases, so we said, let's tackle Oracle and let's port that to Linux. And we saved hundreds of thousands by doing that, and that's what gave the engine for the company to be so later on. So there are many examples in everybody's life. I think focus the right people, and I mean, if you're a founder, then you go to another more complex environment, like how do you get access to capital? But I think the right time, the right point, and know your strengths. Sometimes it's IP, sometimes you have a unique product. One of these days I heard an idea that was about a Uber for ambulances. And initially I said, I just don't get it. So every time I don't get something, I'm the annoying person saying, okay, explain please. And I didn't understand. They start drawing. Then there's really a problem because you really have these different ambulances, but sometimes, and again, they might not have that a lot in the US, but globally, when you have disasters, you might have ambulances in this city, you might not have in the others. And this Uber described was not for people, but more for hospitals to share resources and assets. And that's an inventory. So these are the kinds of ideas where, again, if you have the right team, if you're pursuing the right idea with focus, I think is what to me matter most in the journey.
Great. Yeah. So I would like to talk about mindsets. So there are, we perceive there are good, there are bad mindsets, and mindset they shift. So what mindsets helped you, and what mindsets made it more difficult for you?
You specifically with people or culture?
So yeah, whatever you find important there. So have you experienced your mindset shift during the years?
I think daily 10 times.
Daily 10
Yeah,
times.
I think, again, that's part of the nature of my job, to be open, because you always need to try to hack your own ideas, and I think everything gets better. If you're cooking, you like to cook, you try, you do experimentation. Today, you do pasta this way, the other way. You know how to do it right after some time, but you keep trying. So mindsets, I would say that first, it's very difficult to have one truth, even in business, right? Because you might be pursuing a segment, and there is a very good use case, maybe more niche, oriented to some other specific segments of the market or the demography that you are trying to attend. But I would say mindsets, what I really benefit more, it's really from open-minded people, maybe for the nature of my second part of my career, because they really, initially having conversations from how will a connected device, and in those days we're talking about how a phone, I worked in Nokia, those bricks, remember, amazing devices, but they were far away from what we have here today. So how could you envision that? Through the conversation, the first comment you could have would say, it would never work because it would be expensive, you need to rely on your competitor supply chain. Some of these manufacturers, they get the pieces, for example, the screen from the competitor, so you end up subsidizing your competition. So these business models are very mixed. So I would say that open-minded, it's one very important thing that I benefit a lot. On the flip side, like I always try to ground both and level the playing field, it's also when you have people that can really create some rational, clear understanding of an idea. These are two different kinds of people, left and right brain, but I would say that it's very difficult to find people with those kinds of experiences and skills. You develop by doing. So say founders, they tend to gravitate one or the other. You might be more of an inspiring leader or might be on a mission-oriented COO. But I would say that these two would be the two clear ones that I benefited more. Two big extremes, but at the end of the day, I would say that to your point, mindsets change, and I always flip from one to the other. Going through the journey in internet, the question was, why do people need internet? The example was always, you can send an email or send a message to someone in Japan. And I would ask, I don't know a single person in Japan, right? It's like today, those concepts do not apply. But then you go through that journey, so you need to be open-minded, and then, yeah, but some local people will have the need. So IBM was one of the initial companies in my territory to use that, and their employees, and then it grew. Second, in health, the different mindset of really putting perspective into everything. So there's always a new perspective, a new business, a new economics. So again, perspective, it's really deep and broad. But I would say that in health, how could you give value to doctors that most of the time they have already access to the highest level of the top-end technology? But there was a sweet spot that we could find. There are the students. So the guys that are going through university, they need to spend a lot in books, in knowledge, to be going over and become a doctor. Then in Nokia, I would say that the experience was amazing because Nokia was in telecommunications, the whole ecosystem, and the telephone. So again, we met in those days a lot with companies trying to create value because the industry was huge. So again, different people, different mindset. In those days, you could see already new devices coming. Again, would any of you create a company to compete with another company that has 90% something share? No. but they had a reason, that's why they're still here. So the Chinese brands became, they reached some level of quality, and they are available today. And I would say that Visa, the mindset, I would say that those days were really about being digital. So it was something also huge. And at WEX today, I would say that the great mindset is really how can we give more in the business that we are developing. So we are in fleet business. So you have now a huge revolution in connected cars. Cars are getting connected. And if you're not into that specifically, I can tell you that people are discussing how cars will connect to each other in traffic, like WhatsApp to each other, Facebook Messenger. So you were supposed to say that, well, so then will I get into a car, a taxi, and we just rest, read my book while my car is driving, but it's also telling me that, hey, your fridge don't have more water. Would you like to stop by here? By the way, there's a 20% discount. People are building those APIs, and again, that's not really far away. We here could be creating value for those things, and the OEMs of cars, the service providers, they're all looking for companies to fill those gaps because this industry is huge. So at WEX, for example, we are tapping all these different revolutions, and again, that's a complete different mindset to really make sure that the company can exist. If you look to the top 5 companies at Forbes 5 years ago, they're completely different now. And there's a reason for that. The economic shift is huge.
Great. Thank you for that. So I would like to talk about mistakes now. So we all make mistakes, right? A lot of mistakes. And so what was your biggest mistake?
Okay, so there's a funny one today, right? Was very bad these days. So when I start working, so my first job, I worked with a very close friend, and he said, okay, the only thing I have to do is to take care of this file. It was a file that we sent for billing. So every bill that you used to receive, now we pay over internet. We received a paper bill, and it went to the bank to pay. So that file had the value, the person, the address. So if you had a bill of, for example, $100, you have to send to the bank with 100.00. So when I processed that in my Excel and export the data, I added a comma. So it was comma instead of dot. And the bank considered comma as nothing. So if you had to pay $1, you end up receiving a bill of 100. If you had $1,000, you receive 100 times that. So the big mistake that I learned there is pay attention to commas and dots. And that's, just a story. And of course, I end up participating a lot in those customer care calls, and I kept my job. But I would say that the big mistakes, the big one I would say, most of the time is when you really is tempted to just consider your blind spot. And what I'm trying to say is really when you let your own ideas, your own perceptions, you don't hear to what's going on, and you just go with your gut. Gut is good. It moves you, makes you, pushes you forward. But at the end of the day, you should consider more. So if you have an initiative to pursue a dream, yes, you should go toward that. But you should always calculate properly your steps. One example was when I was moving from Nokia to Visa. I would say that the final days at Nokia, we had a big project in for one clarification. Today you pay per streaming, you pay per content. In those days you just pay for data. So we have no way to create plans for that. We were implementing those. And we have to push a system to production. And one of the challenges was that we require further approval. And specifically, we didn't step up properly to the challenge that we have with that provider. And we didn't properly assess the situation. That gave me one of the examples of properly considering the environment. Another one was sometimes as a personal investor, and now about myself, you're really receiving opportunities every day. And founders, I mean, they live that dream, so they inspire you, they tempt you to go with him in the journey. But one thing in that job, the big mistake, for example, I would say there was a very successful company in Latin America, in the transportation industry, that I let it pass because of one of my personal assumptions. And again, you end up doing that, you never forget. Mm-hmm. But I think more than those specific examples is really, you are more susceptible to commit mistakes when you really don't do your homework most of the time, when you just move yourself. So if you're studying, if you're trying to build a business, if you are an employer and trying to explore a new career, just do your homework. As a founder, I would say the mistakes are a completely different concept. Mm-hmm. One is when you have a certain capital where you allocate that, you're tempted sometimes to drop on the product, right? And then sometimes you run out and you have to go straight to growth hacking. But then you are running that from one customer perspective, you're not doing from a platform perspective. Then sometimes you get in a very bad situation because that customer might not have been that committed, so you have no way to vet that. Today you have design thinking techniques to help you assess those, but I would say that that's one of the challenges. I mean, again, broaden scope and make sure that doesn't happen very often, because mistakes we're all gonna make. I mean, we all do. I do it in my current job, but if you have a process to fail fast, that's the best thing you can do. Failing is part of the process. People don't measure you for what you did bad. I think, again, people will see maybe some mistakes, but it won't matter how many mistakes if at the end of the journey, you're trying to make it the right thing and you're having success. That's what will really matter. So move fast to fail fast.
Great. So you mentioned assumptions as a part of the mistakes. So we all operate on assumptions. That's mostly what God tells us. So do you test your assumptions?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think that not only me, I think everybody should and try to do that. And again, when you deal with new business ventures, most of the time, you're dealing a lot with things that you don't know. You're going to domains that are new. So in fact, just a few people understand. So try to do a lot of networking. And I mean, I'm sure if I have time, and I hopefully I'm gonna have time to engage with every one of you, I'm gonna leave here with a different perspective, because regardless what you do, you see from a different angle the same thing. So whatever industry you are, so what I do most of the time is try to extract that and see, so there's another way to see that. Because sometimes you're running a business or creating a business model, business case, but again, the person might not give the best value from this feature, might be from that feature. And assumptions, I think it's about dropping everything on the table and being open. Because if you have your assumptions, but again, it's your assumptions, you're biased. And if you're biased, it won't help anyway.
Yeah, so have you changed the way you test your assumptions over the time to your career?
Oh yes, I think initially it was more about, well, I'm gonna sell ice cream. Mom, do you like grape or strawberry? I mean, it was really more about these mechanics of testing, A/B testing. Over time, I think all of us today have access to Google, that you can get a lot of free data, reports. There's a lot of information out there. There is a huge effort on separating data that really matters and that is really substantial to what you're trying to achieve. So there's a huge energy that you need to dedicate that, because some people, I mean, you get some information like, okay, flying cars will become in 2020. Or some others saying, what a big flop, flying cars will never arrive. And then you have numbers for those two studies. So how do you conciliate that? So the ways to test those assumptions, I would say that, and again, in my job, I'm creating different startups every day, trying, and we kill and build new. So we have a pipeline of these ideas. And the assumptions, I would say, first we test with potential customers. We test internally. So WEX has a broad base of employees, so you can test. When you have access to global, so for every founder, what I would say, try to find your friends in other places. Ask them to give you feedback. I mean, because you might be trying to achieve something here, and they have been through that before in some other geography. So use your own network. But I would say that broadly, in a corporation and over time, what I could get as real value is that you have to model those assumptions and start to make sure that they are richer, meaning that they are passing through a bigger extract of addressable market. Can be people, can be machines. In IoT, you test the machines that are going to consume your services. It's very challenging to get feedback. So you have to measure efficiency, time, access, and there's just a few people doing that. One of them I met, in fact, they are in Boston, and they are exactly doing that, treating the machines in a way that they provide feedback. But real feedback, not just from the telemetry of the business, but real feedback. How can you consider a machine giving you feedback on something? And then comes AI into play.
So how do you pick which assumptions to test?
Well, depending on the process. So you have you have a methodology, right? So you have academic methodologies to pursue that. So it's a complex thing. So I would say that again, in one end, you have the gut feeling that people will need that. So you have your own convictions. When it's positive, you try to base yourself and collect everything you can to make sure that you create some substance to that approach. But again, you can be biased. You might be looking also for something that convinces your own ideas. So most of the time, it's not just the work, it's also the team. So the team with assumptions, different views, will challenge the view. And again, in an open environment where I have people to really disputing, no, that's not a table. That's a place to put food when we have events. No, it's circular. We can have a game with this thing. So you plot these assumptions, you model through some methodologies. Well, in the companies that I worked for before and now, they're completely different because these methodologies get updated, but most of them are available freely. There are some tools available, and I could help you guys to get with. So one specific one in these assumptions is, again, through the design thinking process.
Design thinking, yeah. Right. So what motto do you live by?
I think you have to live by example. I think that personal, I don't look for complex mottos because living is already difficult. So if you are a father, if you're a husband, if you're an employee, if you're an investor, all the roles that we have in life, it's already a tough job to be great in every one of them, right? As humans. So pursuing our dreams, I think we elevate that because now we are trying to put everything toward that major goal. But I'd say that you need to live by example. So in my case, I love to work with what is new, building these new frontiers, stretching everything that I touch. So I would say that I need to inspire the people who work with me because every day you're tempted to say, why are we doing this? I mean, it's too far away. Or do people really need that? And if you put that back into why would people need to send mail? Letters were available, right? You don't need a different material to put your water. Why do that in plastic, using glass, using different materials? So you have a lot of different ways to do the same thing, but they evolve. So living by example, and also I believe a lot of an evolution in general. I myself, study. I love the theme, and I think with AI, everything is evolving fast.
Yeah, that's true. So I heard this get fired or promoted attitude.
Yeah, I think that that's true. Who told you that? Yes, yeah. That's true. I think one of the things is most of the time where I had the challenge, I used to tell to my team, guys, we are going to get fired or we're going to get promoted. I say, hey, if we really believe in the idea, again, that was an inspiring way to say, if you really believe you have something right to do, there are two ways to tackle that, right? You can say, nah, you can blame the game. Well, my company will not allow that to be done. I would never do that. Or you can really put yourself in and move on. So I'm always, gravitating and inclined to really make sure if I believe into something, we pursue. And that was the motto that we always inspired the teams and always worked. I would say that, for example, I always worked a lot with emerging markets, right? In Europe, all different places I lived, but I think emerging markets is the most interesting one because people still deal a lot with cash. The level of internet that they have is very, very limited. Access to health, it's limited. So it's like sometimes you go to some villages, we don't need to go to Mars to see a different planet. You just need to go to a different country. And I would say that when we were trying to address, for example, mobile payments in the past, and we had projects, for example, in India, you look to those things and you say, we are really trying to do the right thing, but it's a completely different thing. So imagine you're trying to explain to someone that understands payment as a card, that the car will never be there, but the phone is already there. How can you move that? So that was a way for us to say, if we really believe we need to be vested, we need to be focused, we need to make sure that it works, the numbers are there, the mission is there, we need to inspire everyone around us, so we don't get fired, we get promoted.
Great. So next is about the future. So we all like to look into the future, and we would like to hear, how do you see the future? So what opportunities do you see on the horizon for startups in particular? Yeah,
so I think again, if we have founders, developers here, investors, I'd say that's a very exciting time to live. I think there are already some understanding that economies will grow a lot with these movements of exponential disruption. So new companies, new concepts coming and opening new markets. You have a lot of industries that are evolving very fast, but I would say that AI, artificial intelligence, it's still being defined exactly what does that mean and places to be applied. So I'd say that it's amazing what you can be doing. So for example, we are doing a lot of work now because we have these three amazing verticals that we work with. So AI can be used for prevention, right? You have a lot of data seated there. You can have a machine just look and say, hey, it might be a potential problem. Another thing is preemptive transactions. So say that, well, if I am here and I probably is low on cash, and they know that I need an Uber every time I drive, I might need a loan to get the next Uber drive, and could be funded by a consumer goods company because they want to promote a new product. There's a lot of pockets that startups could be tapping there because these problems are very complex, and there will be just a few places where one company will get the whole thing. And I would say that again, artificial intelligence, IoT is also Internet of Things. It's too broad, so there's a lot there. There's machine to machine, but there's also automation. There are a lot of services, and you have also the connected car. So the car that we used all our lives is changing. You have the sharing economy. So I would say that 5 years ago, who would consider not buying a car, living in an Uber kind of style? You have a lot of people doing that because it's more expensive to park your car than sometimes consider and factor that in for your lease of the car, or even buying that with gas, with everything, insurance. So I would say that in every different new technology that is out there and the disruptions going on, there's amazing opportunity to do that. And the evolution in general that I see, so I personally believe a lot on evolution itself. So we as humans are evolving. The way we're thinking, the way we're using. So augmented reality. So the current examples are very primitive, right? Is that, okay, I get my phone and I can see, I don't know, a little toy dancing on the table. Or I can see a picture, you can see the real painting at the Louvre in a museum. But again, you can do much more with that. There is an interesting community here at Maine that I met, and also at Boston, exploring a lot of virtual reality, augmented reality, and it's amazing. And these people came with backgrounds from the chipset industry, so they know a lot how to really do it. So it's amazing what you can be doing with that. So I'd say the evolution in general, I believe more in the expansion of technology than the thought that technology is reducing everything to one single platform. Every time you have a system where reached its level, it evolves. So I would say that internet now has this battle of too much closed platforms. But I think, again, the openness is where the value flourishes, right? If we can experiment something with open web standards, we have much more access to build businesses and solutions than in a closed environment that will require one provider API.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And we are getting to the end of our interview. So the last question would be, what would keep you in our beautiful Portland?
You have it that answered. It's beautiful Portland. So I think first thing is, well, first impression, it's a lovely place to live. Not just Portland. I'm having the opportunity now to visit Maine. I think, again, you're very close to well-defined also major technology hubs. You're close to Boston. You're not that far away from New York, from access to capital. You have some industries that the more I study, the more I see that they are expanding as we speak. So I think the state has a huge untapped technology economy. WEX, where I work, I think it's very devoted to also that investment in the local development. And again, that's where the opportunity is, right? You still don't have here 15 million companies disputing for one specific segment of the market. The companies that I'm meeting, in fact, most of them have global opportunity, and they are testing in Maine. So the good thing is that I think you can test fast. I feel that people here are open to new concepts, new ideas. You have very good institutions, and you're very close to also amazing institutions in Massachusetts. So I think that generally speaking, the economy of the state, I think, it's growing. Real estate is growing. There's a lot of development, and events like this, I would say that I'm tempted to say that, and invested in that since I arrived, that 1 year from now, we'll have even a lot more people here investing locally, living here. And that's one of the reasons that I came. I would say that the combination of an opportunity at WEX, the fact that the local hub can be developed even more, and that's already a lot of untapped opportunity, that's amazing. I think that everybody that lives here should just be running fast and wild to get those opportunities before anybody else.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for...
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we are open for questions right now. So, gentlemen. Yeah, just for the...
You can ask anything. How many founders do we have here? How many venture capital investors? Developers? Okay. The ones that didn't raise the hand, what is it that they are doing?
Designer.
Okay, designer.
Teacher consultants.
Okay. Thank you. We can found a new company here. We have other functions. See? That's what I'm talking about. Action. Please.
Gentlemen, yes, please.
Can there be a certain amount of arrogance in technology that over-anticipates the consumer acceptance of technology?
Sorry, could you just repeat, please?
Can there be a certain level of arrogance in technology that over-anticipates consumer acceptance?
Sure, I would say that the answer for that, it's timing. If it comes first, too early, the perception sometimes is arrogance. That, for example, one example might be in payments. You have a lot of technology that is said to be bringing the whole solution to things that don't need to be fixed because they work. But they also are putting up for discussion. I'm talking about blockchain, for example. Blockchain in payments, if you are consider that in just payments, blockchain can be used for many other things. But one of the things is that some people were trying initially to address blockchain to solve a problem that didn't exist initially. Not Bitcoin, I'm talking about blockchain, technology underlying Bitcoin. And when it started too early in the conversation, that was the perception. Now, everybody's adopting as a plus to existing infrastructure. But there are many other, I would say, experiences, use cases, where we could say that technology has an arrogance, I think that that's the way you put it, that is solving a problem. But I think the way to see that, at least every time I try to put that in perspective, is timing. If you have a technology mature enough by people and addressing a problem that can tap something that could not be done before, I would say that that's the challenge, finding the right timing for it.
I have a follow-up question. Specifically, Uber, you mentioned earlier, is at a burn rate right now of $2 billion a month, and they can't go public because of the burn rate. And their entire business model is based on riders accepting driverless cars. I've talked to a lot of people. No one that I talk to wants to get into a driverless car. I have 4,700 contacts on my cell phone, so I have pretty good the pulse of southern Maine. We can fly a 747 jet from Boston to Tokyo without pilots. I don't see anyone promoting that. We're flying drone attacks in Iraq from the Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada off of satellites. So the technology is available, but I don't see any acceptance of it.
Well, I cannot answer for
Do you anticipate that people will actually want to get into a driverless car or a plane without pilots?
Yeah, so let me answer the question. First, I cannot answer for Uber, specifically on any of the companies mentioned. But what I can say is, what I believe is that, again, if technology is available, people at the time where technology is available will experiment and decide if technology has a certain use and can be applied. I think that, again, for self-driving cars, I think the example that we were talking. I mean, today you have a model where you require a driver, regardless of these companies. We drive cars today. There is one case where I can describe where if I am late to get to the job and I still need to finish a presentation, or I'm late to my university and I want to study a little bit more for the test, if I had access to a train or a bus, I would go because I have time to study. Not talking about, self-driving, meaning we imply that the machines drive for you. But first is there a benefit in some cases for you going from A to B and not be driving, because that requires attention? That requires a lot of things, so you should be dedicated to drive the machine. I would say yes, today. And if that technology was mature and available today, there is a use case for that. Is it massive? Should it be everywhere? And I think, again, we see a lot of experimentation. And I think that's how technology works, right? Technology gives you possibilities to do some new things. The timing and the judgment, if that applies or not, will come from the experiments and the use cases we may find. Make sense?
Well, yes.
Please. Yep. Yep.
Okay, I'm not sure that I need it. Okay, so you're creating a number of startups. and when you actually go live on one, maybe occasionally it actually works the way you expected. Sometimes you want to tweak it. You want to make small changes. And sometimes you reach a point of saying, have we passed the point of tweaking it? Is it time to say that this was an interesting learning experience, but it's not the model we're going to go with? Can you talk about, and I think of the product not just as the device itself, but the whole social system around it, and people and their attitudes and their fears, and the people who don't get to use it, who want it, the whole schmear. How do you think about that process of saying, do we let this trial go on? Do we tweak it? Has it run its course, and is it time to retire this idea? I know it's very specific to each case, but what are some general considerations?
I think, again, general considerations, well, let's put it this way. Every time you're trying to do something with this, so let's assume a startup. So pivoting, should be part of the daily conversation. Of course, what I'm saying, not in every conversation, but you should always consider that if you are inclined to make that work, you should consider that there are many ways to build that something. Your question was really around understanding how much time should I stay in the game or pivot, understand that the world is changing sometimes, right? If I got it right.
Yeah.
So I would say that, well, you have to consider reality, and that those facts, like usage of social media, for example, if I would give an example, the way people consume music, right? I think the music industry is a good example in the sense that the labels, I mean, they could have created the Spotifys of the world. These companies can always create, they could have created the companies for music streaming, right? But they didn't. I think, again, going to the illustration you're asking, the challenge is really deciding on the timing where you see more force from the fact that your assumptions completely changed or are changing more than being kept in your book where you assess your initial business. So in a startup, if you had a business plan and those fundamentals, right? Let's just imagine you deliver food, right? But if you see a different pattern in the usage from your consumers, maybe they would love to still do that, but they do just if they get a coupon before or if they have a rebate after. That's an economic trend that if you see, you better pivot your business model because you'll not get that share anymore. You have to share with the one that is providing the other couponing or the rebate. So you get less here, but maybe you can cross-sell new services. So I would say that, again, the question was very broad. I don't know if you have any specifics, we can get deeper into that. But I would say that the opportunity is really to understand the dynamic and pivot your business when you clearly see that that's not there anymore. With startups all the time, I think their exercise is first, they have a limited cash, they have an MVP, and they try to achieve that, and then maybe already in parallel pursue some customers. Most of the time, it's not the first one, not even the third. And I think it's because we go back to the assumptions of the environment. In so short time, you're limited to a number of based assumptions that you really need to keep pivoting that. Big companies, at the end of the day, the big challenge they have is that these assumptions are already a huge business line. So will you pivot at that? I mean, we've seen an amazing Microsoft story now, right? We are living that story. Microsoft is transforming itself. But I would say that with startups, with limited cash, the challenge is when you're an investor, you're pressuring that company to make sure that they're successful with a product, right? And find that their sweet spot. When these people that are working in a startup, they are trying to cook that to make sure that it works. The only thing that they shouldn't be afraid is to pivot their business or their product and enhance, kill, or even change to a completely different game. I saw startups, for example, pursuing a product, and at the end of the day, they realized that they would not be able to compete. They just got the assets and built a new product. So completely different thing. They just got the engine. It was a loyalty story, and they built a loyalty with QR codes, for example. They were trying to be the mobile app. They became a B2B company instead of being a B2C. So I'd say that there's no simple answer for that, but it's mainly about the culture of assessing the truth and pivoting if required.
Can I ask a sticky wicket question about intellectual property? I'm getting the impression that with the acceleration of technology and how quickly things are moving now, that intellectual property, although it's still something that investors are asking for and companies are trying to achieve, that it becomes obsolete so quickly that it's becoming less and less of a critical part of your job as a founder, rather to just move quickly and get there faster, as opposed to having patents. Can you talk about that a little bit? Is that evolving?
Sure, and I think you addressed the big challenge that happens in innovation. That you're right, with the acceleration of everything. So if we look back 10 years ago, Facebook was not that relevant in our lives. It's not that long ago. Right, so I don't know if you guys went into social media or other social media, but probably the ones in 10 years ago, they don't even exist anymore. So I think through that massive speed and a violent revolution in technology, yes, IP, mainly because also the way IP, you can get IP, the process is so heavy and it's so expensive, challenging, considering some industries, like the industrial engines, IP, technology, robotics, they're still very important because these parks, these industries do not evolve on hardware as fast as others. But on services, solutions, yes, that's one of the challenges that the creators have. I would say that if it's something unique, when you create some things like art, right? You try, when you're really inspired to create that, it's something to really become a piece of art. If it is a software, but you try to achieve that. And if you achieve that, you try to make that unique. So you should be capable to register that. I think that today, it's a conversation that's going on all over the world on can you patent software? Can you patent the experience? You can patent the product, but today we're living a world of experiences. So how would that be? There's no answer for that. You see a lot being done with the open web, the open standards. So everything with the premise that everything should be open and people should create some products on top of that to monetize on those products. But there are some other industries that move in a slower pace, and I would say that is to be seen. I would say that the hardware, the physical piece, the disruption comes from 3D printing. So houses are being printed now with 3D printers, right? More efficient, much more cost efficient. So I would say that IP, the conversation might lead to do we patent experiences or not? I'm inclined to say the near future, it won't be that way. In the software arena, it's a much more complex environment, and that's why we see these Well, we see a lot of patent trolls, right? Also some houses that also just collect patents to pursue that in not business-friendly fashion. Some others are how they say, serious companies that developed a lot of technology that everybody, most of the companies use, and they have the right to pursue the royalties of that creation. So how do we reach that balance? I would say that in the web environment, we've seen a lot more creativity because this is not being limited by the patent wars still.
I am so curious of your perspective coming from a person who has experience all over the world. In Maine, we're never going to have, we're not in Boston, we're not in New York, we don't have access to thousands of developers who are coming out of Harvard and MIT like Boston, or the access to capital the way New York does. Do you see advantages that we as Mainers have that we're perhaps too close to be able to acknowledge? Things that we can take advantage of here that maybe other places don't have?
So I think let's just try to answer that question. If I were in Rio de Janeiro 20 years ago, in technology, in software technology, the scenario would be similar. Little developers, very bad economy. And I'm just trying to say that because I think it's up to the business community to make that develop, right? I think that again, by being in US, the East Coast, even though it's not here, you can access those. But I understand exactly your point. I think that first is one thing that it's creativity, creation, designing, right? So I think that's one thing that is just about festivals, getting together. Design shops can be created anywhere where you really have that kind of talent. And this talent is not, you just don't forge, it's really developed, inspired. So that's one thing that I see. So the designers that I met here, and we contract some of them, they were very good. Some marketing professionals that I met here also. And again, I feel that's also a lot of great talent that comes back to Maine, right? So people with a huge experience, and this mix of people that went and came back with people that are developing and might be leaving or might be staying, founding their own companies. I think that's very interesting to see. You guys have a port here, right? I mean, I worked with ports in the first companies that I worked, and they have a lot of technology that needs local supply most of the time. So that's one of the things that I don't have deeper knowledge still here, but I'm trying to get some information about that because there's a huge economy around the port. So I would say that I touched VR and AR because I saw and I work with that technology. I know that the people that I met, they really understand that. So I would say that what I could identify is creativity in general. I think you have Mecca that has very interesting programs. And again, if we start comparing always institutions, I think we lose perspective because you have always a good way to compare yourself for something with something much better, depending on how you use that measurement, or far better or worse. I still believe, and the people I'm meeting here, they're very knowledgeable, self-learners. I think there is a good vibe here in Portland, Maine. I think people network openly. And I think we just need to create more knowledge mass and be open. So I think one of the things that we are discussing is how we can create more festivals, ideas for people to get together, because it will be in a small conversation where you will feel the energy to get into a new job or open a new business for your company or have access to capital. I think the venture capital houses that I met here already, they are willing to invest in local ideas. So I think that's what I could identify so far. I think you guys have also these amazing beer industry. And again, you guys get a lot of, I could still not try every beer in Maine, but it's amazing how you guys get this recognition. So it's something you guys should monetize more on industries that goes around that. There's service industry, there's tourism. There's a lot that can be extracted out of that. So that's what I could identify so far, and makes me believe that that's an amazing place where we together should be creating even more value.
If you think about educational opportunities that people have, or maybe that you've worked with, do you see any gaps or opportunities of things that maybe people should know more about currently at your position or even previous ones?
So, well, technology issue, bro. I would say that today, for everyone, I would recommend some technology education. So it's too broad, but I would say one is when I work with innovation. So, but my work is innovation in technology. So specifically, if you are into programming, I would say learn more coding languages. It just broaden your scope. Specifically, I would say the web ones, the Golang, there's Python. I mean, PHP is still there. If you go from that kind of, if it comes from that dimension. If you are a hardware guy, I would say that pursue those Arduino boards and try to create your own robots. Today, you can have your own playground and code those little robots to create that. So I would say that not maybe robotics sounds a graduation required, but the more we go to this rapid acceleration we're discussing for the IP theme, that is really about experimentation and builders. So we need to be builders. In order to be builders, we need to be self-learners, because if we had the opportunity to go to another 4-year university graduation, the challenge is that by the time you leave, most of the time, that's not there yet anymore in the market being required. So I think it's much more about those things that makes you a builder. Specifically, I would say technology, and in business, if you want to be sales or business or marketing, I would say that a common theme around that is always a glue is the ideation process, right? So design thinking is a great methodology that wherever you are working will help you. Design thinking really helps you get from a digestion of an idea to a concrete substantial prototype.
Thank you.
So a successful startup needs to have people asking the right questions. And some of them are the disruptive questions that stand back and question those assumptions, as you were talking about. And I want to ask how we structure that. I know many firms have small firms have a board of directors which really looks after the economic container, the corporation, and a board of advisors that's closer to the product, the strategy. When you're in a company like WEX, it's very different. With high tech, the people on those boards of advisors or board of directors are often far from the technology. Is that a good thing, or is that a problem? Who do we want to have in those questioning organizations helping to keep the ship on its proper course?
Good. So just one correction, and it was an amazing surprise. WEX is, and I think that's why we are under a perfect fit. They are very open to that. And I think the new business ventures, in fact, much open, because that's how you get success. And that's where I think that's the simple answer to this situation. You need to create an open environment where you don't punish people to speak up. You really make sure that they are motivated to provide their opinions, inputs, all over the organization. So startup, maybe if you have engineering people, sales and marketing, don't punish the low-level engineers or the marketing associates. Don't listen just to the founder. Sometimes you have founders with strong personalities, but it's the job of the founder to listen to his people. So I would say that, to your point, an open communication, an open environment where you don't punish people if they fail or for whatever they speak up is the best way to tackle that. Everything else should be natural. When companies grow, when you have the factor from 1 to 10, 10 to 100, 100 to, when you have the big magnitude orders, then that's where you see the huge changes. But in a startup, you shouldn't have that very early in the game. So from 1 to 10 people, you should be able to make sure that, again, there are common practices like agile meetings. You just have stand-up meetings and everybody should socialize that way. Say, in a startup, everybody should work together. So do not punish failure and fail fast. I think that more than the commitment of a successful business model, of the initial business model, is make sure that the startup is vested on a success. Regardless business model, it has to evolve. Evolution is there. If you are too comfortable with one business model, then you should be concerned because you might have to adapt that over time, most of the times. If you look at those unicorns, they mutated a lot to the companies they are today. I mean, on the services they initially provide, the way they monetize some of them, in social media or in mechanics, in IoT, in payments. You have a lot of fintech companies. And it's amazing because, again, I repeat that, payments, there's no university for payments, right? And payments, the payments environment is very complex. So there's a lot of opportunity to add value to payments. And commerce in general. I mean, the commerce is even bigger. Payments is the way you make the commerce flows easier. So the worst part of a transaction when I buy something from you is to pay, right? People don't love to pay, right? They love to buy something, buy an experience, receive something. So I think that specifically to that point, an open environment. And again, executing is much more difficult than in just saying. So that's why it's hard work.
So that leads to a question. The WEX that I remember was a company that had gasoline cards for big truck fleets.
We're still there.
And
Very
that
good.
was the core, and there was management that understood that that was the only business. How did WEX go from that very narrow-minded traditional company into the organization that you're describing?
Well, I think mindset of innovation. And if you look through history, I would say that, again, our CEO, Melissa, it's an amazing, inspiring leader. Every day that's been tackled. I worked in Nicola Mori's group also for corporate development. The culture is really about inspiring, open-minded. Let's make sure we have these ideas flowing. I would say that if you look exactly at that point in time, somewhere in time it was about fleet cards for trucks. Now the fleet cards are for any kind of vehicle. We have also the health vertical. Amazing acquisition that was done. WEX Health today is a very good company, and we are doing also business in the travel business-to-business space. How? I think again, there's never a silver bullet. It's really about be open to innovate and again pursue a new business. In the case of WEX, was pursue those two, be good, execute, and have a strategy, have a business, have a value that you really deliver, and execute to that promise. Now we're even pursuing new business ventures. But again, in every story, the big challenge is always, how can you make a corporation allow itself to innovate? Because the challenge is, you always have the question, well, but if I put $1 here, I generate X. There, I'm just experimenting. But if you do not understand that everything evolves and might be going toward an exponential growth or a lowest common denominator, could happen as well. If you reach that trend, then your problem is, did you have any other business alternatives as a company? Or were you married to that model, so you're gonna die with the model? So it's a wax kind of show that's where it tries to do. And leadership is key. I think that leadership is key to, again, don't punish mistakes, make sure you have an open environment for people to evolve, innovate, and that's where you're gonna be getting ideas. Make people say, we personally, in Airwax, we just run something called blockchain competition with all our internal force. It's a new technology. We initially thought that, well, we're gonna have some reception, but we got a huge surprise that 100 people that we did not know that knew blockchain submitted ideas. And we selected the best, we created a training for them, and now we're gonna prototype those ideas. So that's just one example of a simple technique that you can implement. And again, you inspire people. They are now not afraid to have their voice heard. And again, if you pressure your team to that mindset of just looking through one angle, that's the challenge. You better be lucky or you're gonna fail very fast.
Okay, so I guess it's just additional question to this. So those additional verticals, like the health and travel verticals that you acquired under WEX, like, were those acquired businesses or were those like internal initiatives?
Both. So WEX has done many acquisitions throughout the years. Most of these were internal spin-offs initiatives. And after we reached some understanding that we would like to grow faster, we made some market acquisitions. That was the case for WEX Health.
Okay. Like, personally as a company, we are developing like some mobile app for an EDI app. It's kind of like for windshield professionals, you know, after they fix like a windshield, so they can, you know, build insurance company like using the mobile app, you know, right on the road as soon as they fix it. So I was looking at your portfolio of mobile apps. I think you have, you know, maybe like 7 or 8 on the App Store. Were those all internally developed or?
It's always a mix. So some make sense for us to do because require some assets that we don't want to open for developers because they are proprietary, successful technologies. Some others, it's just a UI presentation we do with some partners. But again, I think we can also envision that an app, probably you described, was a phone app. Now we have wearables. And again, I think wearables is another something that requires a lot of creativity because revisiting your question on the main assets of value at Maine, I think that how are we going to use and how is going to evolve the wearables? That's a wearable, right? We had, there's a lot of experimentation in the market, so we need ideas because the technology is already there. So to your point, those many apps address different customers. Some people want to have one app to check one information. Some people would like to have one app to see all the information. You also consider, you have to consider the profile of the person that's gonna use that app. So that's pretty much where we stand.
Okay, and I honestly didn't do probably enough research on WEX, but like I understand the apps, I understand the EDI processors, like, so related to WEX, like, and let's say like travel vertical, are you primarily focusing on EDI processing, or are you offering well, I don't think you're offering the app, so you would primarily be potentially interested in purchasing maybe another company that develop, like, say, or has like good EDI service. Is that correct?
So WEX works in the travel space in the business to business
Right.
payment segment. So assets to be displayed to consumers in that kind of segment goes for the business that is running that process to the business to consumer. So we run the business to business rails.
Okay, so you would be primarily interested in acquiring like EDI service or something.
Again, it depends. That we play in many roles in that ecosystem. I would say that not linked to any specific acquisition. I mean, we don't talk about that.
Okay, thanks, Rodrigo.
Okay, so thank you everyone. It looks like thank you, Rodrigo, for this. Was really awesome, really good insights, and I hope really good lessons for everybody. Thank you once again.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and please feel free to reach me out directly via LinkedIn or my email that's shared. I mean, my all to one-on-one contacts. I want to hear your ideas, what you're doing, if you think you can partner with WEX to add value, or if I can help you anyway for mentoring or for providing you access to anything. So it's a pleasure. Hopefully we can do something together. Thank you very much.
Sounds great.